Welcome to the Portainer for Kubernetes series. I'm Nick from Portainer, and in this video I'm going to be walking you through how you can install Portainer in your Kubernetes cluster. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be walking through two deployment methods here. We're going to be going through the Helm deployment as well as using a YAML manifest. So I'm going to be walking you through both of those options today, and we'll have a timeline so you can select which method you would like to. You can just jump straight to it, otherwise just watch the entire video and I'm going to cover both of those. So a link to this page here, our documentation, will be in the description of the video, so feel free to click there and have a read. But what we're going to do is first, before we go through any of the deployment methods, there's one thing we need to check, and that is data persistence. We need to make sure we have a default storage class set up in our cluster before we go ahead and deploy Portainer server. So what we can do is I'm going to jump to my cluster and we're going to run this command here, which is kubectl get sc, which is our storage class, and we can just make sure that we have a default storage class configured. So let's go and check. So I'm in my cluster now, so if we just run kubectl get sc, we can see that I do have a default storage class all set up. And I'll just show you the setup of my cluster as well. So if I go kubectl get nodes, you can see that I have two nodes. I have a manager node and a worker node. So we've confirmed that our storage class is there. We have a default storage class. So now we can go ahead to the deployment method of deploying using Helm. So the first step is actually adding the Portainer Helm repo, and then we'll just run a Helm repo update before we go ahead and install Portainer server using Helm. So we'll just copy this command here, nice and easy. We give you the copy method here, and we can just jump over to our cluster again, and we'll run these commands. So paste those in, we're going to add the Portainer repo, and we'll just run an update. Quick and easy, we can see that the Portainer repo was added. In this case, mine already exists, and we have updated the Helm as well. So now what we can do is we actually have three methods of exposing Portainer server. So we can go via the node port. If you want to expose via the ingress, you can do that as well. We've got the command here. Or if you want to go via a load balancer, we also have that option. Now in this case, I'm just going to be going with the node port option. And you can see here that it's going to be exposed on port 30779, which is our HTTPS port. But if you'd prefer to be connect to Portainer server via HTTP, we've got that here. So you just have to remove this line and you'll be able to connect on the port 30777. So I'm just going to run our default command here. So I'm going to copy this and I can jump back over to our cluster. And if I paste this in, we can just have a quick look. So we're going to create a namespace of Portainer, and we're going to be using the LTS flag, or tag, for our image. So we're going to be running Portainer server LTS. And I'm going to hit enter here. And just like that, we've deployed Portainer server. So if I copy this here, Helm gives us a nice little command. So if I paste this in, it's going to show us the IP address and the port that we can connect to Portainer server on. So if I hit enter, we can see that we can connect on this IP address of our node as well as on this port. So if I copy this here and chuck it in our web browser, we should hit Portainer server. So we'll just give it a little moment to load and get all started up. Great, so now we can see this here. So we're using a self-signed certificate. So seeing this message, we shouldn't be surprised. So it's saying this connection is not private, but depending on what web browser you're using, in this case, I'm using Safari, so I can click show details, and then we can just click visit this website. And that's going to take us to the Portainer server setup page where we will set up our local admin account. So as you can see here, we'll set up our username, password, and also our license key since we're using Business Edition. Now, I'm not going to go through this install method just now. We're not going to finish this here because we're going to go through the YAML manifest steps first, and then I'll show you setting up our local admin account and actually getting into Portainer server. So now that we've covered how you deploy Portainer server using Helm, let's cover how we're going to deploy it using the YAML manifest. So in this case, we've got two methods of exposing it. We can go via the node port or via a load balancer, and we have a manifest file for both of those. And you can see here, if you're going to go via the load balancer method, you can connect via HTTP on 9000 or HTTPS on 9443. Now we're going to use node port for this option, and you can see here HTTP for node port is 30777 and then HTTPS is 30779. So we're going to grab this command here, which is going to apply the manifest file that we'll be downloading here, and we can see we're going to be using the LTS version. So if I copy this here, and we're going to jump back over to our cluster, and we can run this command. So if I paste this in and hit enter, it's going to grab that manifest file and it's going to deploy it. And you can see we now have everything deployed. We can check this by checking our service. So if I go kubectl get svc, and it's in the namespace Portainer. So if I hit enter, we can see it's here and it's all looking good. So now we can connect to it on that 30779 on our node's IP address, and we should hit Portainer server. Now it was the same IP address of our Helm, but I'm just going to hit enter here again, and now it's going to walk us through that deployment. So we can see we're hitting it now, which is awesome. Again, we're using that self-signed certificate, so we're seeing this message. No worries there. We can click visit this website. And now we should see the page where we have to set up our local admin account. And now I'm going to set a password. And we'll create the user. And since we're using the business edition, it's going to ask me for the license key. So I'm just going to put my license key in now. And we'll hit submit. And there we are. We've connected to our Portainer server that's running in our Kubernetes cluster. So if I click home here, we can see we have one environment, and that's our Kubernetes environment that we've just deployed Portainer server into. So if I click here, we can see an overview of our cluster, how many applications, namespaces, and stuff like that. And if I come under the cluster details, we can see the nodes that we have there as well, which is the nodes you see in my terminal. We have our manager 1 and our worker 1. And you also see the resources and how everything's looking as well. So that's deploying Portainer in your Kubernetes cluster. Now in this series, we're going to be covering a lot more, how you can deploy applications and how you can add additional environments, and a lot more in this series. So check out the playlist. We'll have a lot more videos here, so check them out. Any questions, feel free to ask below in the YouTube comments, or join our socials, we have a Slack, a Discord. All of those will be in the description as well. So feel free, jump in there and have a chat with us. If you've got any questions, we're more than happy to help. But until then, I will see you in the next video. Have a good one.